Welcome to Golf Smarter Mulligans, your second chance to gain insight and advice from the best instructors featured on the Golf Smarter podcast. Great golf instruction never gets old. Our interview library features hundreds of hours of game improvement conversations like this that are no longer available in any podcast app.
You know, imagine trying to coach someone to tap dance if they have Novocaine in both their feet. It's a daunting task. Well, they could probably pull their thighs around, but their feet are still numb. Most people have Novocaine in their golf swing to quite a bit of the area. Fred, I think I may have said this before. The reason I play better golf than you do is not because of talent and not because I've spent more time at it. I play better golf than you do because in the 2 seconds it takes to swing, I'm more aware of what's happening than you are at this moment.
With another interview from the archives of Golf Smarter, here's your host, Fred Green.
Today is part 2 of our conversation that I had in December with Fred Shoemaker. It took me nearly 2 years of contact for Fred to return to Golf Smarter, so once I had him on the line, I was going to hold on to him as long as I possibly could. This is the conclusion of our hour-long phone call. And like I stated last time, the quality of his phone line wasn't great, which was out of my control, so my apologies. Welcome back to Golf Smarter, Fred.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's good to be here again.
Now, Fred, there are people who come to your schools. You know, we've talked a lot about personality types on the golf course. My favorite descriptions are from Jennifer Monroe. But are there personality types that just don't have a clue of what you're talking about?
Not if you speak to their concerns. You could get the most type A performance-driven person in the world, which I love personally. Those are my favorites. And he says...
Wait, no, you're attracted to that because they're the most receptive, or it's the most challenging for you?
Well, let's put it this way. It's the most interesting.
Okay.
You know, and also, they've been through a lot, you know. And I like that. I like it when someone says, listen, man, all I really want is just 10 yards on my drive. Okay, fine. And away you go.
That one you don't see that challenging.
Well, it's only challenging if you have an agenda that you run on people, then you lose who they are. If you listen and get where they are and meet them right where they are, I don't find it's any problem. People are great. You know, if you just talk to them straight. Does that make sense at all?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
I
not
don't
what
know.
We're taught in life.
But what a lot of times golf pros say the same thing you do. Well, don't some people just want the pure mechanics?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I ask them. It's very simple. That you can ask a person. He says, "I come over the top. I come over my swing at the top." And I say, "How do you know?" He says, "A golf pro tells me, and I've seen it on my video. I come over with all my swings. I want to stop it." And I say, "Do you actually experience the moment when it begins to come over, when it begins to tighten up?" He says, "Well, when I come down, my club face cuts across it. I can see that." I said, "I got that, but do you get the very first time, the genesis of that action, the beginning of it?" And most people say no. Because all the issues exist in blind spots. And then you'd say, listen, unless you experience it, don't you think it's going to just keep happening no matter what smart things the next guy tells you? Could we just start today that you could begin to feel what you're actually doing? Then you might have a choice about doing something else. I mean, imagine trying to coach someone to tap dance if they have Novocaine in both their feet. It's a daunting task. Well, they could probably pull their thighs around, but their feet are still numb. Most people have Novocaine in their golf swing to quite a bit of the area. And Fred, I think I may have said this before. The reason I play better golf than you do is not because of talent and not because I've spent more time at it. I play better golf than you do because in the 2 seconds it takes to swing, I'm more aware of what's happening than you are at this moment.
Do you think that comes with experience, though?
Yeah, but now here's the deal. A lot of people have 50 years in experience, and they're so deep in their head, they don't actually experience things.
Okay.
They're in the same old conversation with themselves. Got to do better. This will get me it. I could play like this tomorrow. I'll be fine. Uh-oh, I've lost it. Same old story. But experience means that I am directly in touch with the thing that's happening as it's happening. That gives experience. And that is a rare thing in golf. Most people get the same experience thousands of times, and some people get thousands of experiences. which makes them great. I think it's the same with you. If I was to walk into a radio station like you have or where you are, I would look around and go, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming. And from your time there, you would have distinctions I would not have. So, can we get this really simple for golf? Golf is simply a series of distinctions. And a distinction is this. If I've said this before, please stop me. When you're riding a bicycle, what's the number one thing you have to distinguish in order to ride a bicycle, Fred?
How not to fall off.
Okay, great. How about we'll call it balance?
Balance.
Okay. Now, suppose if you had, before you ride a bicycle, if you look up balance in the dictionary, will it help you?
No.
If you ride a bicycle and you fall and you fall and you fall and you fall, and in that moment you get balance, it's an incredible experience for any young person.
Mm-hmm.
In that moment you get it, could you have gotten off your bike, turned to your buddy who had not ridden a bike, and said, this is how you get balance? Could you have said anything to them that would have helped them?
No.
Okay, so what happened is you probably created a safe environment, like your backyard or something, and rode and fell until you got it. See, the beauty of a distinction is when you get it, it's yours, and you can't give it away to another. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But suppose golf is a series of distinctions. There's only like 5 of them. And when you experience them, like you experience balance on a bicycle, you own it, and you own it for all time. It gets dim some days and brighter others. But when you really get where the club face is, really get it, I've never lost it since I was in about 12. And when you really get the relationship to letting go and freedom, you really know what it is. I mean, in golf, let's say there's the club face, and then there's the swing line, which is a shaft around the body, okay? That's the second distinction.
Mm-hmm.
A third one could be compression or solid hit. That's 3. A fourth one could be alignment. And the last one is letting go and freedom. Now, these distinctions are discovered through being present. And when a person really discovers them, it's a very cool thing. Swings change. Golf scores go down. And that's for me, the relationship. As your distinctions arise, your handicaps drop. That's the only inverse relationship I've ever seen in golf. In other words, as information gets more, handicaps don't go down. As understanding gets more, handicaps don't go down. But as you become aware of more and you distinguish more, handicaps go down. So, is this okay if we get too far out there?
No.
Okay.
You know what?
Reel me in if we do.
No, because if somebody's not getting it, they're gone. And if they're gone, they're going to lose out.
Well, you got to let them know that not getting it is part of getting it, like riding a bicycle.
You just told them.
When you started falling off, you didn't say, oh my gosh, falling off is terrible, because you knew that falling off was on the way at some point you'd get it. Same as golf. You take a swing and say, I ask you, do you feel the club head in its 540 degrees of arc? You say, no. I feel at the beginning, and then I lose it. Hang in there. Just close your eyes so you can feel a little more. And after a while, you start to paint in where that club is as it goes around you. And pretty soon, as it goes around, you can also feel its opening and closing. And then you could take it from a very slow speed and move it to a little faster speed. And then pretty soon, you can feel it at a pretty good speed where the club opens and closes. And you notice when you hit a ball, before you look, you can tell whether it hooks or slices. You can feel it. You know it. And then all of a sudden, you kind of get kind of cocky. And you say, I can start hooking it and fading it when I want. That's a whole cool level there.
I was going to ask you if there are people who shouldn't play golf. But I'd rather ask you, paired, before we talk today, what have you learned about students, golf, and golfers by being an instructor?
Oh, mostly how great they are. Human beings are incredibly capable. And we're the only species on the earth that can interfere. I mean, squirrels don't fall out of trees. Birds don't run to the window in front of me unless they lose, can't see it. But it isn't by their attention was somewhere else. Human beings are so used to doing things half of what we're capable of doing that we think that's a normal life. But when interference drops away, self-doubt, anxiety, frustration, hope, fear, all that stuff, just lump it as interference. When interference drops away, human beings are amazingly capable. And I don't care if you're a 75-year-old lady in Japan who's never touched a golf club before. this body that she inhabits, the body she inhabits, is quite remarkable. And it's great to be around when people see what they're capable of. You know, and I think if anything I've learned is that to never put a person in a box of any sort, athletic, non-athletic. You know, a long hitter won't be a long hitter. As soon as you put them in a box, you limit them, and people invariably surprise you about what they're really, what they can do. So I think that one other thing is if I can't create an environment for myself that's without judgment and evaluation, that's safe, then I can't expect to create it for another. So when people say, oh, I coach other people better than I coach myself, it's really not true. They can kind of hold it out. But if you give another person 25 golf lessons and they're not improving, you'll probably end up doing the same thing you do with yourself, which is upset, anger, and you too can beat yourself up to a better golf game. It's never been proven true. So, and it's a great question. I think I'm constantly learning from people being open enough to share their experience. And I think if it wasn't like that, I wouldn't keep doing what I was doing. Because I know what it's like just to be caught in the cult of the expert, where all you give is answers and are afraid of being found out that you don't really know. It's a very, not a great place to be.
So many of the questions that I've received from the listeners to ask you seem to be keeping the club face open, throwing the club, things that they've pulled out of extraordinary putting or extraordinary golf. And I just don't want to go there with you because that's not what you're trying to talk about. I get the sense that there's more to it than that.
Well, let's suppose it is.
Okay.
Just read one question about whatever you just said.
Okay. All right, let me pull one off here. Okay, and I got a number of them. Okay, here's one from Scott Newell in Pullman, Washington. And he says, extraordinary golf taught me to love the process of learning and not to be afraid of trying new methods and absurd swing techniques to help me learn my swing and having fun while doing so. So one of the things that is reaffirmed in reaching my golf epiphanies is the old adage that golf is a game of opposites rings so true. For instance, and here's the question, I fought a hook for 3 to 4 years and have noticed that the more I try to fight a hook by keeping the club face open or try to keep the club face from shutting, each is very different, the harder it is. Very recently, I've actually noticed that I'm trying to feel a shut club face during the swing that my body/subconscious does a much better job of keeping the face open than I was in trying to keep it open.
Yes, really great. I would say terrific. And would you like to deal with the shut club face? I mean, one of the fun parts is that can you tell where the club face gets shut? Is it at the beginning of a swing? Is it at the top of the swing? See, I would recommend, is it Scott? Yeah, I would recommend that he just goes out and for once in his life not try to change the hook or fight the hook, but maybe just get in touch with the club face through the arc and discover the hook.
I'm sorry, the obvious question is how?
Well, of all the places to pay attention in the world, it's probably not your toes and not your tongue. You might say, for once in my life, I'm going to let go of trying to have each shot turn out well. And I'm going to take my attention and bring it into the face of that club. I'm going to close my eyes and see if I can actually experience the face of the club, the position that it's in while it's up and swinging down. Then I'm going to find a speed in which I have my greatest awareness. It may be at half the speed that you're swinging now.
That's so huge.
Yeah, at the speed most people go, the awareness possibility is almost zero.
Right. Yeah, and I think I love that concept of finding your speed because people try to hit hard, not necessarily have a fast swing or a slow swing, but they try to hit the ball hard. Yeah,
well, yeah. So can you find a speed in which you have your greatest awareness? And then, now here's the coolest part. If Scott, the fellow who wrote that, has a blind spot on the club face, it's going to take 100% of his awareness in the first session to have a chance to experience it. If any of the awareness is taken away by wanting to hit the shot well or trying to remember something, he hasn't got the energy, hence awareness, to pay attention to that area. In any new blind spot, it's going to take 100%. See, that's at least one thing I've learned. After a while, when you have the breakthrough, like on a balance on a bicycle, when you've had that breakthrough, it doesn't take 100% after that. It takes, 40, 50%. You can kind of feel it even though other things come up. But are you willing to give 100% of your attention to that club face no matter what? And that's how we start. I mean, no matter what, really. As a coach, I don't care if a person whiffs the ball. I have no interest whatsoever about that. But I am interested that they can be learn about what they say they're committed to. And in Scott's face, it would be the club face. So, see, you can take any issue that you consider this little technical thing that seems kind of strange at this point in the conversation, and you could change it into an awareness thing, point of awareness perception that you could learn about. So instead of being just about remembering technique, you could put your attention to a critical variable and learn about that while you're swinging the club. So, all questions are great, I think. I mean, people have what they're interested in, and I don't think there's the right one or the wrong one. But you can always take a question and bring it and develop it as an awareness, like what to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you consider yourself a linear thinker or an abstract thinker?
I guess both. It depends on the arena. My only question is, does it matter what I consider myself? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's like people say your left brain and your right brain. I've never experienced my brain. I don't experience, the right brain is the intuitive, and the left brain is the... It's like I don't experience my brains when they switch, and I'm not talking about things I don't experience. I don't experience my lobes or my subconscious, really, either. I'm trying to... For me, if I haven't experienced it, and I'm not... then I don't really find it that valuable for me to talk about. It's mostly theory then. So I like to stay more with what I actually is in the world that I know, rather than the theory.
So would you have a sense of whether a abstract thinker or a linear thinker would get greater value out of extraordinary golf?
Well...
Because, there are those people who keep track of every single statistic after every single round, and then there are those people whose head is in the clouds and they just love the outdoors and it's all about the walk. And then there's people who only see the golf ball and they're taking that walk for 4 hours.
Well, let's suppose that a person would take that little exercise like feeling the club head we just did.
Okay.
And for the person who's driven by every statistic, I would say to him, can you tell how many degrees it's open? Compare it with each shot. And you might write down for 20 swings, 2 degrees open, 5 degrees open, 3 degrees closed. So you can take what's considered a person's asset. One person is a logical, strictly, as you said, a linear thinker. And you can take it and use their awareness for that. Another person may say, it kind of feels kind of gooey and slippery as it slides around me. You can say, okay, is this one more gooey and slippery than the last one? You meet people where they are instead of trying to have them to come where you are. It's it's more interesting that way for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Interesting.
I've had a lot of comments. Extraordinary Golf has been out there a while, and the putting book's been about a year or so, I suppose, and the other one's been about 10 years. And even to this day, people still write back what they get out of a book. See, a book is like a Rorschach. That the truth isn't in the book. It's in the person reading it. So they'll get wherever they are at the moment. One guy said about Extraordinary Golf, he said, you only wrote about one thing in that book, didn't you? I said, well, what was that? He said, hit it with the right side. And I said, that's amazing you got that out of that. But so people get whatever they get. And and that's what I love to hear what people got back out of it.
Oh, well, I'll read you one. Well, first of all, a mutual friend of ours, John Leland, who writes the blog The Joy of Golfing, he says that Extraordinary Golf is one of the few golf books that he considers a must-read. Okay, he wrote that in his blog on November 24th, 2008. Here's a letter I received from Mark Salisbury in Canada, who said, after reading Extraordinary Golf, my eyes have been opened to a new and fun understanding of what golf is all about. I used to be solely score-oriented. So on a bad scoring day, I didn't enjoy myself on the course, but now I have learned that I don't play golf for a score, but I play golf because I just love to play golf. I didn't enjoy the practice range either. Very monotonous, but after reading the book, I try to be an artist, painting strokes on the sky, how far right to how far left, and how far, that I can paint, how high, how low. I now love to practice, and it has launched me into a new world of shot making.
Well, congratulations to John and Mark. That's pretty cool. They got that out of it.
Yeah.
That's more of a testament to them than to the book.
But Mark did have a question for you.
Yes.
He says he's very interested in one day coming to an extraordinary golf school when he can save up the money. Yeah. I think he's young. But he wants to know, do you still personally teach at the schools, or do you have other coaches doing it for you?
I'm at about 70%, maybe 60 to 70%. I'll never not teach because it's the most fascinating thing of all. But it isn't just, we do extraordinary golf, too. I mean, we do a program for extraordinary golf, but there's a lot of other programs that once a person's been through extraordinary golf can jump in on if they want. Program on concentration. We have a mastery program in which we take 8 people for a year inside of the question, what's it like to be coached for a year, and really a discovery of what is coaching. So we've had 2 programs go through in that. That's wonderful. I mean, so there's all sorts of possibilities. Mm-hmm. But to me, it's like I'm not interested in being like a mouthpiece. I like getting in there, and that's where I get the real joy.
How would you define what sets the Extraordinary Golf School apart from other multi-day golf programs?
Well, it would be like the difference between putting something in and allowing something to come out. Suppose the golf swing is already there for a person. This is not theoretical either. This will be proven to people exactly when they come. That they already have a golf swing and it's interfered with. What would it be like to have that come out, using their own awareness, being able to create an environment that they can coach themselves in it? It's the difference between coaching and teaching. A coach is someone who knows who stands in front of them is in fact a genius and is allowing for that potential to show out. A teacher could be someone who thinks the genius is in the teacher and they're trying to put information over there. So it's the difference between, I would say, between seeing, when Michelangelo created the statue David, and most people know this analogy, that he walked into a block of marble, walked up to it, and he took away everything that wasn't David. And that's how he created it. I think golf is like that. It's a process of removal rather than addition. And so it's not just learning about golf, but it's learning about all the other things that allow for the entire experience of playing and practicing. Now, when's the last time you've been to a great play when the curtain shuts? You know you've been part of something special. Or a great book, when you close it, you don't want to move.
You don't want it to end.
Yeah. But suppose golf could be like that. When you finish on 18, you just realize it's been an amazing time.
Oh, so often.
Yeah.
I frequently say out loud that my least favorite hole is the 17th, because then I know it's almost over.
Well, then you're the kind of person I love to play with. But to my experience, that's the person who wins in the game. I play with a lot of people who shoot 68 and are kind of miserable. And I don't consider that the game. I don't consider that the game that people aspire to. But there's something about knowing the potential of the moment. What could really happen in the game. And I think one way of defining it is waking up to the reality of the present moment.
Oh, listen, I can shoot 98 and be really miserable.
Well, there's a possibility. And also to be able to create an empowering context. To learn how to debrief around in such a way that you're left empowered and ready for a new future, even with 98. So, I haven't been to that many other golf schools, but we had a lot of people tell us. So I don't know really how to compare it.
Okay, so then can you provide me with kind of like a diary of how your school progresses? I mean, do you start in a classroom? Do you start?
Yeah, we'll start. We just ask people what they want. Mm-hmm. And when that conversation is clear, then we create it to help them get it. So it isn't like there's any cookie cutter thing, we go here and we go there. Some people say, what I'd really like is to learn how to putt freely and hit the ball solidly with my irons. I want to get a sense of coaching myself how to sand trap. And I have this fear always when people come up behind me that they'll be embarrassed. So I'd like to deal with that. So basically what we do is we create an entire menu of the group and get a starting point, which most people think is something valuable for them, and then we start. And we're finished when they say they can coach themselves in these things. Or 3 days. But
how large are your classes?
12.
Okay. And how long before you get to either the range or the course out of the classroom?
Oh, probably an hour and 30 minutes.
Oh, so not a long time.
No, I mean, to me, this idea of mental talking about it, I think people learn in action. And I think they learn when they're doing the thing rather than talking about the thing. Mm-hmm. So as soon as we set what people want, we're off. And, we film people, of course. I love that. Mm. But I promise you the way that the films are looked at and the way that we train people to look at a film will be very different than anything you've ever known.
I want to get to another question here.
Sure.
This one's from Stephen in Alberta, and I think this is relevant to what we're talking about, but this is an interesting question. He says, I prefer golfing with my wife to anyone else.
Yes.
Can you provide some information about the couples program at Extraordinary Golf?
Yes. Well, we do. Yeah, we do a couples program. The next one's coming up. It's around Valentine's Day. And some people want to have a relationship and a golfing experience with their spouse and their mate that grows throughout time. And they love it, and they learn how to coach each other without the typical given answers.
Well, that's a dangerous combination to try to coach your spouse on the golf course.
No, it's not.
I've seen some pretty nasty exchanges.
Well, now watch. Let's suppose.
But, it's like when she's frustrated and you're going, but you're doing this wrong, but you're doing this wrong.
Well, why is it the guys always end up giving advice?
Exactly.
That is unrequested.
Uh-huh.
So one of the things is that, some simple guidelines is you never coach people unless they ask you.
Absolutely.
And if someone hits the ball and goes, oh, what did I do? That is not a request for coaching.
No, that's a rhetorical question.
You got it. And so one of the things that people can learn is how great they can be for each other and how to also get the other's experience. What's valuable for golf in them? I mean, if I had $1 for every husband who said, oh, my wife doesn't practice very much, I think I'd be a rich man buying a condo in Maui. And if I had another $1 for every woman who came up to me in golf schools and said, I wish you would just shut up sometimes, that would also be quite a bit of income. Mm-hmm. So there's something about guys who, guys troll, are looking for an opening in which they can contribute some answer, even if it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. It's just, I don't know what it is, like in our DNA or something. So one of the things about the couples program is learning how to coach your mate, not driving each other crazy, and also to have a great time together. So I find that fun. In addition to all the other things we do, developing your swing that fits your body and learning how to self-trust. And we also take a look at the time between shots. 99% of the game exists between shots. When's the last time you ever got coaching on that? Meaning, usually by the time a person steps up over a ball, the shot's a fait accompli anyway. Because how the body is means most people have so much stress in their body by that point, the odds on them hitting a good shot are very small.
Yeah.
So the time between shots, huge for golf. So.
I'm gonna take a left turn here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Luckily, the golf industry is not asking for a bailout. Well, the LPGA might. But can you, from your perspective, which is unique to say the least, provide a state of the address on the golf industry today?
Well, of course, it's just an opinion, right?
Yeah, that's all I'm asking.
So the honeymoon period's over. That more golf courses are closing than have opened, and more people leaving the game than who are in the game. Now, the next question is, what kind of value are they receiving from their 4.5 hours out there? And people are saying loud and clear, it's not enough. So they're leaving the game. So there is some simple questions that the golf industry's got to learn to ask. And secondly, the question could be, why are you playing? What do you really want? See, there's this assumption that everybody's playing to get better, and if they get better, it'll all turn out. And most people get so much stress with that agenda, they eventually say, I don't need this, and they'll do something else. But if people find a game worth playing for themselves that they've chosen, could be just to enjoy your mate, feel the sunshine on the side of your face. It could be just to learn about yourself and bring that into life. If people find a game for themselves, their own purpose, they will play with a passion. And if people don't find that, and they adopt the cultural purpose, which is to be good and not be embarrassed and to, don't look bad, that sort of thing. If they adopt the cultural purpose, the quitting rates will stay where they are. So it's a simple thing. For your time out there, are you having the kind of value that you hope to have from the game? And unless our golf industry addresses that very clearly, if they stay in the old paradigm, they have no right to expect what they've been getting. They have no right to expect. The past was a boom period. Now when people have less money, they're very selective in what they're spending it on, rightly so. It's got to have great value for people.
It's a difficult time.
It could be. Mm-hmm. It could also be a time of great opportunities for people.
Is the USGA making it any easier for people to enjoy it?
I don't know.
With some of their rules?
I don't know if it's about the rules or whatever. I think it's just about purpose. I think the USGA is doing the best they can with what they know, so is the PGA. Mm-hmm. People are always doing the best they can. But, see, can I tell you a little bit of what I had intended for this phone call?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. See, there's a difference between something that's informational. It increases the sum of what you know or the content of what you know. And you listen for compatible ideas. I'm not interested in that. But there's something that could be transformational. It's the way we know what we know about our world and ourselves. It's about our beliefs and our assumptions. See, if you examine these things, a new worldview comes out, and a new and powerful way of acting and being will come out. To me, that makes the difference, and that's a fun game. Now, if anybody stayed on this long in the phone call, this is what normally has happened. If anything in this of our time in this podcast has been outside of your worldview, I mean, it's you have your worldview, it shapes what you see, and it's about your beliefs and assumptions and so forth. But if something is outside of your worldview, here is most likely how you'll have experienced it in the last hour. You'll experience it as nonsense, or you'll reject it. Or you're going to modify it to be consistent with what you already know, which is not the thing I've been talking about, probably. Then it'll either occur as a threat, and you'll discard it, or you'll eventually say nothing is new here. See, when something is truly outside of your worldview, it is a very scary, threatening thing for most people. But it's the only time really something great happens. So, when you can catch yourself trying to fit it into what you know, or say this is silly or nonsense, if you can catch yourself and let that go, and keep exploring into what we've been talking about, some really great things happen. So, I don't know how many times we'll do podcasts together, but one thing I can promise you, our conversations are not going to be ordinary. We're going to take a look at beliefs people hold to be true and really examine them. Because it's in these kind of conversations that our lives can be developed and enhanced. And to me, that's the fun stuff.
And that's what makes it extraordinary. What a plug for your books. Well, folks, extraordinarygolf.com and the Extraordinary Golf Schools. And if you didn't get this, start it again and listen to it again. Fred, this was absolutely phenomenal. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Fred.
And wish you all the best of luck. Please give my best to Joe. And hopefully we'll get to talk again.
And thank you for being open enough to this stuff. You can make people do a lot of things, but you can't make them be open. That's a real gift.
Well, as I've said multiple times, the title of this show, Golf Smarter, is not just the title, it's a call to action.
All righty, Fred.